Could it be that the electricity we use today was never actually dependent on all these power plants, wires and meters? And what if I told you that there was a time before 1900 when the idea of free energy was not a fantasy, but a real question that still unsettles some minds today? In old records, in forgotten letters of scientists, and in hidden patents, something still seems to flicker in the shadows, as if there is a story that was never fully told, or a part of the truth that was deliberately concealed. But the real question is not what happened. It is why we were never told the full story. In the late 19th century, the world was living through a strange moment. Cities were lighting up for the first time with electric lamps. Trains were becoming faster, and scientists were speaking about a new force that would change human life. But behind this progress, there was a silent struggle. A struggle not easily seen in textbooks. A battle between those who wanted to control electricity and those who believed electricity should be free. This is where the story begins. Not just a story about invention, but about a dangerous idea. Could energy exist without cost? At that time, several names began to shape everything. One of them was Thomas Edison, who built a system based on direct current and centralized paid distribution. On the other side stood Nikola Tesla, a man seen as strange by many, a scientist who viewed electricity in a completely different way. He was not asking, how do we deliver electricity to people? He was asking something far more dangerous. Should we pay for it at all? But before Tesla, we need to step back a little, to a time when electricity itself was still a mystery. Scientists treated it as an unknown force. Some believed it behaved like a fluid. Others thought it was a vibration in something invisible. And one concept kept appearing again and again: the ether. They believed the universe was filled with an unseen substance that carried light and energy. Today, we know that explanation was not entirely correct. But at that time, it made perfect sense. And from here, strange ideas began to emerge. If the ether exists, could it be used? Could energy be extracted directly from the air? And here begins the first spark of the mystery. Some inventors of that era spoke about strange experiments, devices that could collect energy from the atmosphere, electric circuits that seemed to run without a clear source, and ideas that looked like they touched the impossible. But most of these experiments were never fully verified, or their creators failed to prove them scientifically. And over time, most of these stories disappeared, or at least were forgotten. But the story did not end there. At the end of the 19th century, a name appears that will always be tied to mystery. Nikola Tesla, a man unlike any other scientist. He believed that the Earth itself could transmit electricity, not through wires, but through waves. He imagined the world as a living system filled with energy everywhere. And from this idea came one of his most controversial concepts: wireless transmission of electricity. No traditional power plants, no meters, no bills, just energy flowing through the air. But was this just a dream? Or something closer to reality than we think? In 1901, Tesla began building a massive project in Long Island, a huge structure known as Wardenclyffe Tower. The official goal was to transmit wireless messages across the ocean. But some documents suggest Tesla was thinking about something far bigger, something related to transmitting energy itself, not just information. And here the questions begin. Why was the project suddenly stopped? Why did funding disappear? And what would have happened if it had succeeded? Some theories claim Tesla was close to introducing a system that could have changed the entire world. A system that might have delivered electricity freely to every corner of the planet. But there is a problem. This idea clashes with economic reality. At that time, electricity was becoming a massive industry. Companies were investing, infrastructure was being built, and profits were beginning to grow. So was it really possible to allow a concept that could destroy the entire system? Here, the real mystery begins. But let's be clear. There is no solid scientific evidence that free electricity ever existed before 1900 in a usable, widespread form. What exists are ideas, experiments, and attempts, some partially successful, others never completed. But what makes the story fascinating is that many documents from that era contain strange hints, letters between scientists, incomplete experiments, and ideas that were never fully developed, as if a silent scientific race was taking place in the shadows, between those who wanted electricity to be an open natural force and those who wanted it to become a controlled system. But there is something that does not fully add up here. If free electricity were truly possible, as some modern claims suggest, why don't we see it today? Why do we still pay for energy? The simple scientific answer is that generating and transmitting electricity requires real energy sources, such as coal, gas, water, or solar power. There is no known physical system that produces energy from nothing without violating established laws of physics. However, this does not mean that early ideas were meaningless. Some were simply incomplete. Others were ahead of their time. And some were misunderstood over the years. Even Tesla himself never clearly claimed to have created free energy for everyone in the way modern myths often describe. He spoke about improving efficiency and wireless transmission, which is very different. But over time, his work turned into legend. A legend retold and exaggerated repeatedly. And that is where distortion begins, where fact blends with imagination, and science becomes a mystery story. Still, one thing cannot be denied. During that era, there was a real battle between different electrical systems, alternating current versus direct current, competing companies, competing visions, and public campaigns trying to convince the world which system should win. This real conflict created fertile ground for myths later on, including the idea that free electricity was deliberately hidden. But when we step back and look carefully, the picture becomes more complex. There was no single decision to hide a revolutionary invention. Instead, there was gradual scientific development mixed with economic reality. And some ideas were simply not ready for implementation. So why does this story still survive today? Because it touches something deep inside human thinking. The idea that there might be a hidden force, something powerful enough to change everything, something that was taken away, or something still waiting to be discovered. But real science is not built on mystery alone. It is built on testing, repetition, and proof. And when we return to what we know today about electricity, we see it is not a hidden secret. It is the result of precise physical laws, still being studied and improved every day. But what remains fascinating is how this journey even began. From a small spark in 19th century laboratories to a world completely powered by electricity. And yet, some questions still linger in the air. Why did some inventors disappear from historical records? Why were some ideas never fully developed? And was everything simply natural progress? Or were some paths closed because they were not meant to continue? Perhaps there is no single answer. But what is certain is that the story of electricity is not just technical history. It is a story of competing ideas, of human vision, and of the limits of belief in every era. And in the end, the question remains, just as it was from the very beginning. If electricity is simply a natural force existing everywhere around us, do we truly need all this complex system to access it? Or is the truth simpler and deeper than we imagine? And perhaps what we still do not understand is not electricity itself, but the way we think about it.